Hi Aries, welcome to your November 2019 General Tarot reading. It's Raina here. So I'm using the Wild Unknown Tarot again. I'm going to be getting a new tarot deck that I saw online. I can't remember the name of it, but I like tarot decks that have, all complexity too, in addition to having good imagery that you can easily connect with the cards. But this one supposedly has some esoteric symbolism on it, so that would be cool. I have a Hermetic tarot deck, but that's almost like too complex. I should use that sometime. But all the cards are like black and white. They're very weird. But maybe I'll incorporate it in a future reading. All right. So I did get 2 10s on the top row, and the number 10 is the end of a cycle. And yeah, as I record this, in October we just had a full moon in your sign. So I'm not intending that, I'm not expecting that this is going to resonate with every Aries person out there 100%, but looking at it in terms of astrological timing, you may have kind of finished a cycle or something, kind of coming to this conclusion in some way, or wanting it to come to a conclusion. The heart of the matter is the 10 of Wands, and this can be a card of overwork. I talk about this deck and how some of the cards have ingenious connections to the meanings, but this is one of those cards where I just scratch my head. You couldn't look at this card and say, oh yeah, it means this. It means that somebody's working overtime, or they are taking on a burden that doesn't belong to them. That's an important thing too, especially relationship-wise. It's funny because I just got a message from somebody, and they said, a YouTube comment, and they said, I prefer, hearing about work and not love. And it's like, yeah, I can totally see that. I'm always hoping that that's the case, because I do separate love readings. And, why be redundant or repetitive? But, sometimes things come up where I have to go there. And this is one of those times, because we have in the past position the 5 of Cups in reverse, which can actually be, I feel like, ending some kind of a mourning period. So, I could look at these 2 cards that I've just first picked up and said, you're working, you're back in the swing of things. Maybe you took off time because somebody that you cared about passed away. Of course, it doesn't have to be a spouse. It could be, God forbid, a child. That would be probably the worst of all. But a parent, or just, a loss of something that was important to you, or maybe it was even a former job, but it affected you emotionally, and now you're working again. I could say that. However, it could be that you are taking responsibility for something that doesn't belong to you, that you're being too codependent, too willing to do something for somebody that they need to do for themselves. Actually, you know what I'm thinking too, with the 5 of Cups, there could be some addiction issues. It's funny. I wish I could remember. I think I don't want to say unless I know, but there's a website where I was visiting, and they were talking about how all the cups and how they relate to alcoholism. And not that alcoholism is funny, but each cup, it represented a different thing. So I think the Five of Cups was like drowning one's sorrows. So a person feels depressed and they use alcohol to cope. While in the reversed position, this might be somebody who has gotten sober, somebody who has they're starting to deal with their problems and they're not escaping in that way. And so if you're with somebody who's in recovery and you feel like, I'm going to, pay all the bills, do everything because I want this person to, their recovery to take, their sobriety to take, that could be possibly a good thing, or it could be yet another ploy on this person's part to get other people to take care of them. And I hate to say that, because if somebody's getting sober, that's a wonderful thing. But there are different things that are recommended with, like AA, when people get sober, and people have to become accountable for their actions. And so, I don't know, there could be some kind of a dilemma here with you in a personal relationship. However, if this is like a work situation, you could be somebody who is working very hard. Maybe you're getting over a disappointment, but when we look at the higher message, in the higher perspective, this is the Ten of Swords, and I always laugh at that, right through the eyes, how brutal that is. You could be dealing with some kind of betrayal, and maybe you're in denial over it. You're kind of glossing over the fact for some reason. Possibly because it's hurtful to think of it, to contemplate that it actually happened like that. And by creating this story of what really happened, it allows you to kind of like function better, thinking about whatever this is. Because otherwise you would probably just quit altogether. So if you were passed over in a promotion, and maybe you're doing or passed over for like a raise, and yet you're doing the work of two people with the Ten of Wands, you might be like really working your fingers to the bone. You have to understand that this is a betrayal, maybe a betrayal of trust, a betrayal of, a promise, and that, you should not do the work of somebody else. Maybe you're being manipulated by the boss, and they act like you're indispensable, but they're not paying you for it. Now, obviously, this is a general reading, so there may be times when people will help out somebody because they have a deep caring for this person, and they want their business to thrive, and it's not a question of being guilted, they just really feel strongly about it. So I'm not suggesting that in every case that this is a bad move, but simply, bringing out the potential for you excuse me, for you to be misguided and thinking that you're doing this great thing to help them out, when really you're being used and betrayed. They're betraying your kind-heartedness, your generosity. What crosses you is the Four of Pentacles. This suggests some kind of money situation that isn't quite right, where your finances, maybe if you are in a situation where you're not getting paid what you're worth, but you feel like you need to be here right now, you have to alter your finances in some way. You have to get a hold of your spending. I know Aries, I think Aries are free spenders for the most part. And sometimes, it may feel like bad to have to restrict because it feels like the opposite of abundance. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do in order to, for the higher good, for something that is important in the long run, not in this moment. Because you could, make a promise with yourself if you really are kind of struggling right now for whatever reason. Maybe you got maybe with the Five of Cups, you got like a demotion, or they cut your hours if you're an hourly worker. And if you're still spending the way you did when you were making more money, that's just something you have to look at and just, do it as a game or a challenge where you say for the next 3 months or 6 months, I'm just going to buy what I need. I'm not going to buy anything extra because 6 months is nothing or 3 months is nothing, and I want to see if I can save money. And you may find that it's a lot easier than you thought. What's coming in is the Seven of Swords. So I want to go back to this scenario of you in a personal relationship. If you are kind of shouldering somebody else's responsibility because they're in recovery or because they've been depressed, and maybe they're coming out of a depression with the Five of Cups in reverse, they may be on the upswing, but you're still kind of in that mode of taking care of them. The higher message in that case would be that they did something to betray you and to betray your trust. And maybe there was a long history of infidelity when this happened that went along with some addiction. And that's not to say that even if that's the case, that you shouldn't help somebody or stay with a partner because of that. Because sometimes somebody's addiction may lead to other bad behaviors, but once they get clean and sober, they're able to also stop doing those other things because they went hand in hand. But the Four of Pentacles could be that the money situation is, it's kind of out of control. There's something going on. Now, especially if this other person wants to spend your money and, you're the one who's paying all the bills, look at that. See if you are being taken advantage of. The Seven of Swords is about strategizing, maybe doing something covertly. And you see the little fox. This is one of the examples that I really do like of the illustrations. And this can go as far as leaving the situation if you feel like it isn't serving you, that it's something that may at one time had a point to it, or there were good things to it, and it kind of devolved. And maybe you care about this person, but your feelings have gone, or you sense that they really haven't changed fundamentally, that they may have, it's like when somebody quits drinking, they call it a dry drunk, somebody who is still with the negative mindset. They call it white knuckling it, where they're kind of like in the same state of consciousness. They just don't drink. But you have to kind of like do more than just quit drinking. You have to, or whatever, using, you have to also accompany that with a sincere desire to change your mindset in different ways. And some people don't want to change. They just want to keep the relationship going because that relationship enables them It allows them to do what they want to do, but they have to make it look good. So you may kind of discover that and realize that you have to get out of it, but you don't want to trigger another another downhill spiral with this person. You are trying to be very discreet so that they are not perhaps I don't know, like triggered, if you will, again to use. But I hesitate to say that because I don't feel like it's anybody's fault that somebody decides to drink or, you know, take some other substance, abuse substances. Everyone is responsible for their actions. Nobody makes you do something. But still, you know, we still can influence other people, especially if that person doesn't have a strong sense of themselves. So you may have to kind of like get out of Dodge in a sense, or gradually reduce the time that you're spending with this person in order to make it seem more normal and less kind of just cut off. In terms of work situations, you may have to come up with some strategy to get what you want. If you don't want to quit your job, how to get more money or how to reduce your hours. You may even decide to go over your boss's head and speak to the higher management about it if you feel like you are plainly being taken advantage of and it's against the rules. The outcome is the Three of Wands. This is a card that I think Aries people can really relate to. First of all, Wands relates to fire signs like Aries, as well as Sag and Leo. And in the Rider-Waite deck, you know, and the Morgan Greer deck, which I use so often, they show mountains in the background. They show a man who is, you know, setting out on this journey. It's a journey of expansion. This can be an entrepreneurial card. This can be like doing your own thing, selling your own things, whatever. Perhaps you are looking for more out of life, and, you know, on all levels. And this could be something that really speaks to that. And especially if you feel like you're kind of hamstrung, like you're kind of kept in this holding pattern, or, well, I don't know if I'd say holding pattern, but this restrictive kind of an inability to gain more money, as well as an inability to progress within a company or what have you. And Aries people usually work better working for themselves because you're a cardinal sign and you just naturally are more of a leader than a follower, and you like to give orders, not take orders. But if you are going to work for somebody, it certainly is going to make you a lot more enthusiastic if who you're working for really honors your like drive, your ambition, your energy, and they keep providing more and more expansive opportunities for you. But if they kind of actually diminish your role, that's going to make you feel even more claustrophobic and like you're just kind of in a holding pattern, not really going forward in life. And that more than anything, I would say, is a real bummer for an Aries person. You want to believe that there's movement, that things are actually happening, not that you're just kind of twiddling your thumbs and waiting for something to occur. So I think you're going to seek something possibly on your own, although it may not be in this time period. But it just may be that you are on your way out with the Seven of Swords. that you want to do your own thing. That's another possible interpretation of the Seven of Swords. Okay, that's what I have for you, Aries. I hope that you received something from this, and if you'd like a personal reading, please check out my website, rainamoonastrology.com, and the link is below. Take care. Bye.